When we talk about rock, we almost always immediately think of guitarists and vocalists. But what about keyboardists? Many of them are true monsters on the instrument and end up being overlooked without the recognition they deserve. So, no more injustice. In this video, we're going to highlight these incredible guys. 10 rock keyboardists who are criminally underrated. Dave Greenslade. Born in Woking, England, Dave Greenslade was one of the great names of British progressive rock. He stood out as a founding member of Coliseum and later Greenslade, where he mixed jazz, rock, and classical music in elaborate compositions. His refined and creative style established him as one of the most versatile keyboardists of his generation. Despite his skill and originality, Greenslade was often overshadowed by more popular names on the prog scene. Still, his ability to create unique atmospheres and his fundamental role in the evolution of the keyboard and rock make him an unjustly underestimated musician. Jerry Corbetta. The American music scene of the 70s gained extra shine with the talent of Jerry Corbetta, a native of Colorado. As the leader and keyboardist of the band Sugarloaf, he made his mark with hits like Green-Eyed Lady, mixing virtuosity on the Hammond organ with a unique charisma. Later, he collaborated with groups like Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Corbetta, however, is rarely remembered among the great names of keyboards. His presence, more associated with one or two hits, ended up overshadowing consistency of his career, leaving his talent as a musician and composer less recognized than it truly deserves. Down, there's a bright and better place to be. Don't call us. Mike Pinder. The British psychedelic scene relied on the power of the mellotron and the keyboards of Mike Pinder. As a founding member of the Moody Blues, he was one of the first to explore the mellotron as a full orchestra, helping to create the characteristic sound of symphonic rock and paving the way for countless bands. The trees are drawing me near. I've got to find out. However, Pinder ended up being forgotten in the face of the band's own success and the focus given to other members. His pioneering and creative contribution places him as one of the most underestimated keyboardists in the history of rock. Wooly Wolstenholme. At the heart of 1970s British progressive rock, Wooly Wolstenholme stood out as a keyboardist with a dark and atmospheric style. As a member of Barclay James Harvest, he gave emotional depth to the band's sound, creating striking moods with the mellotron and synthesizers. By not seeking overt virtuosity, Wolstenholme was often underestimated. His importance lies more in construction of atmospheres and in fast technique, which makes him an essential yet undervalued musician. Marian Varga. Born in what was then Czechoslovakia, He was considered a prodigy from an early age. Marian Varga shined in Collegium Musicum, a band that combined symphonic rock, classical music, and jazz, creating some of the most daring interpretations of classical composers in Eastern European progressive rock. Being outside the Anglo-American axis, Varga is rarely remembered in lists of great keyboardists. Still, his originality and creative audacity are testaments to a talent that deserves much more international recognition. Since the subject is underestimated artists, be sure to check out our list of guitarists who deserve a lot more love. Click on the card that appears at the top of your screen. Billy Powell. From roadie to official keyboardist of Lynyrd Skynyrd, Billy Powell gave a sophisticated touch to the sound of Southern rock, with piano passages full of emotion and energy, which became an essential part of the band's identity.
Billy Powell, piano.
I know you don't owe me, but I wish you would let me ask one a favor from you. Got a ring to your mouth.
Despite his importance, Powell is almost never remembered in discussions about great keyboardists. The weight of the guitar and the genre ended up overshadowing his contribution, making him a brilliant, but often forgotten musician. Don Scherpenzeel. Born in the Netherlands, Don Scherpenzeel is one of the most creative musicians in European progressive rock. Founder and leader of Kayak, he was responsible for the band's sophisticated melodies and intricate arrangements, was also a member of Earth and Fire, and collaborated on albums and tours with Camel, further expanding his importance in the genre. Despite his consistent and long-lasting work, Scherpenzeel is rarely cited among the greats of progressive keyboard. His discreet demeanor and the fact that Kayak never achieved global projection unjustly place him in a position of underestimation. Dave Stewart. Among the most inventive musicians on the British scene is Dave Stewart, not the 80s pop star, but the 70s prog genius. He played in bands like Egg, Hatfield in the North, and National Health, always bringing humor, audacity, and sophistication to his compositions and arrangements. Despite the grandeur of his work, Stewart is remembered almost only by Canterbury scene fans. His genius in balancing complexity and accessibility never received the mainstream recognition it deserved. Jürgen Fritz. Coming from Germany, he was one of the pillars of 1970s European progressive rock. Jürgen Fritz gained prominence as the keyboardist of Triumvirate, a band often compared to Emerson, Lake and Palmer for its technical strength and musical complexity. His piano and synthesizer lines created a distinct identity within symphonic rock.
You are making me crazy. Shabba-dick-dick-dick.
Even with such skill, Fritz always remained in the shadow of other more media-savvy virtuosos. The result is that his work, full of inventiveness and intensity, remains little remembered outside the circle of prog fans, which makes him a clearly underestimated keyboardist. Josef Skrzek. Directly from Poland, the brilliant multi-instrumentalist Josef Skrzek marked Eastern European progressive rock with the group SBB. His talent went beyond keyboards, but it was on this instrument that he built unique soundscapes, mixing improvisation and experimentation. Being outside the Western market, Skrzek never had the global recognition he deserved. Still, his contribution is vital to understanding Prague from the socialist bloc, and his name should be among the greats. These guys were extremely important not only for the bands and projects they were part of, but also for the history of rock in general. Unfortunately, they often don't receive the recognition they deserve. Now I want to know from you, what keyboardist can be left out of part 2? Leave it in the comments. And of course, don't forget to like, share with friends who like rock, and give that support to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.